and welcome to day 3 of April. I am now telling you the date in front of every video. But anyway, I'm Jontje, I'm autistic. You probably know that, maybe you didn't. There you go. And before I start this, there's massive, I think my head's out of frame. Massive disclaimer. Now both of them out of the frame, great. Massive disclaimer that this is a personal opinion and you do not need to agree with it. If you want to discuss it because you like discussing things, you're welcome to do so. Preferably, in the comments of this video, otherwise I'm not sure how I would be able to discuss back. I do enjoy discussing, so but please, do keep it civil, because that's how a discussion should be. And let's start with the actual video. Okay, so you've probably read the title, so you know what this is about. If you haven't, it's about why I prefer the word autistic or being described as autistic to being described as having or being, no, that doesn't exist, I think, Aspergers. Anyway, so for, I think, most of the history of that those two terms have existed, there's been a sort of value judgment to them. Well, not just a value judgment in terms of this person is not normal, but also sort of, Asperger's being either less extreme or better, or, whatever people have said in the past. And autistic generally being seen as sort of more severe, whatever, you want to describe that, although even Asperger, as in the person who, discovered it, already also used the term autism, so I don't really want to go into the whole historical use debate too much, because I think that is a very large topic, and I don't personally think that I've researched it enough to really have a clear idea of whether or not what a lot of people think why you shouldn't use the term Asperger's is, if that's in the end, I think that's everyone's own decision, but I don't know enough about the historical circumstances and, how much historians have actually found out, so I just sort of disregard that for now until I can research it further, which I probably should and will and want to in the future. But what I do know is that autism was also used back then, and neither of the terms are sort of free from being used to not so nice ends in the past. Okay, but as I said, I'm just more or less disregarding that, so let's stop talking about that so we can actually do that, or I can actually do that, and let's go on with why I actually think that, which does not have a lot to do with that. So first of all, I think if you just look at the usage nowadays, if you ignore what people have done and said in the past and look at how we are using the terms now, it seems that a lot of the time Asperger's is a sort of subtype or people who, outside of clinical terms, in which technically Asperger's is, as far as I'm aware, not supposed to exist anymore, but it does for some reason. Don't ask me why. It's I'm not a psychologist, obviously. So in terms of just, personal identification, there's a certain subtype of autistic people who use the term Asperger's. because they identify with it for some reason. And it's the type of people who have a certain sort of type of whose autism manifests in a certain way, which sort of more or less agrees with what Asperger's used to describe. So sort of more, no, not even more intelligent, seeming more intelligent to neurotypical people. There we go. That's, I think, the best description I can give without trying not to offend anyone. And that type of person usually has a specific set of problems or of things that they have trouble with and things that they don't necessarily have trouble with. And I personally, even though I received the diagnosis Asperger's for some reason, after it was supposed to not exist anymore in the, medical community, which don't ask me why. I can't really identify with that set of problems, and they don't really apply to me. So I don't really see a reason to identify as that, since, the reason of a subtype is to create in a certain sense boundaries, or to make him to address a certain group in the end, even if that group is part of a larger group. And if I'm not in that certain group, I don't really see a sense of identifying with the term that describes that group. Now, if some people would want to sort of redefine the meaning of Asperger's to be to have the exact same meaning as autistic and to just be a synonym, then you could, of course, or it would make sense to describe oneself as Asperger's, even if you're not in the subgroup that the term currently refers to. But I don't really care. I don't think a lot of people, I don't care about the term, and I will get to why I don't, to another reason I don't like it in a second. So I just don't see any sense why I should identify with that from that sort of standpoint, if that makes sense. And then the other thing for me that also plays quite a large role in why I don't personally like the term very much is that it's being used every now and then to sort of to invalidate me being autistic and the things that I struggle with. And people have sort of said, could you just leave your Asperger's just to the side for a minute. I'm like, I would if you could, tell me how, but I don't know how to do that. I'm like supposed to take my brain like a comic character and put it on a shelf somewhere or something. I don't know. I can't really do that. But people sort of, especially if I'm sort of asking for clarification for a task or something, and those people for whatever reason don't want to give that clarification, or they somehow feel annoyed by me questioning it, then that's often when that sort of comes up and people say, well, could you, and therefore, I don't really, because I think Asperger's still in the minds of a lot of people who are not very familiar with autism and Asperger's, and the whole thing has this idea of being less severe, and therefore ascribing that to a person sort of, or them thinking a person has Asperger's is it makes them think that, you know, that person is doing it voluntarily, or it sort of leaves more freedom of interpretation, I think, than autism does in a way. Maybe. I don't know. That's my personal interpretation. As I've said, all of this is personal interpretation, and you don't have to agree with it. In fact, I would encourage you to make up your own mind about topics like this. And yeah, that's sort of all I have to say about that, unless I've forgotten something, which is quite likely. And I hope you have, you know, a lovely rest of your day. And I would appreciate it if you've enjoyed this, if you would give this video a like, and if you would like to see more videos like this, if you would subscribe to my channel, and there will most likely be a new video tomorrow, since it is April, and therefore it's, you know, Red Instead, whatever, Autism acceptance month, whatever you want to call it. And I will, yes, see you tomorrow, hopefully, if you're subscribed.